Welcome to part 5. Today we'll be discussing about the facts about flirting and fascinating men. Let's do a quick refresher of the last 3 sections before we continue on with new material. The 3 dating principles you've learned so far are: dating principle number 1, men and women are different. Dating principle 2, men are attracted to women because they are women. Dating principle 3, you are not owed a relationship, you earn a relationship. Of course, it's one thing to theorize, it's quite another to actually apply that theory to your life. So, bearing that in mind, let's figure out how to actually apply the dating principles to your life and your success. Dating principle number 1 applied. Men and women are different. A lot of women think of men as being like inarticulate, less emotional, more sex driven versions of themselves. They hold men up to the same standards that they use on other women. And of course, from such a biased perspective, the men are often found lacking. Simple fact: when you expect the man to behave or think like a woman, he's always going to come up lacking. And this is fair or productive or attraction supporting methodology to use. No, of course not. All that's going to end up happening is that a false sense of superiority on the hand is going to be cultivated. And on the other hand, a false belief of inferiority is going to be cultivated. And both parties are going to wind up feeling resentful, frustrated, and confused. Holding men up to female standards and expectations is like following a manual for an exceptional and second-rate relationship. It's just one more way of polluting the potential that an otherwise genuine and otherwise promising relationship could have. And it's just one more way of reverting back to the safety of toxic stereotypes and generalizations. Let me give you a few examples, the conclusions that women often draw from male female comparison. Men are inarticulate. Men can't multitask. Men are poor communicators. Men are no good with emotions. Men don't want commitment and only want sex. Now just imagine for a second how buying into those sorts of comparison based beliefs could literally hobble you when it comes to forming satisfying, fulfilling relationships with the opposite sex. A quick word about comparison. Playing the comparison game is just about the surest way possibly for anyone to instantly lower the quality of whatever it is that they're comparing. Here's a secret. Things can only be the way they are. Try to make them into something they're not, and you're not just going to wind up with less satisfaction than ever, a sense that you just can't win. Same goes for men and people in general. If you're comparing a guy to someone else, like a woman, all you're going to be doing is buying into the idea that he is somehow less than and punishing him by using standards that are simply not relevant to reality. The result: both of you are going to end up rattling the bars with both hands, with a serious case of the grass is always greener over there syndrome. How are you meant to love and trust a guy when deep down part of your brain is telling you he doesn't really want to commit to you? He's in just for sex. Oh, and by the way, he's also an inarticulate, bad communicator who's no good with emotions. Let's face it, looking at the characteristics that you find attractive in another woman and yourself, would you really want those characteristics echoed in a man you want to grow old with and have children with? If you had a man there to gossip with, talk about how neighbors' relationships going, discuss clothing sales, what looks good, and what each of you got up on the weekend, would it add another dimension to your life or simply mimic that of your girlfriends? And now let me appeal to your common sense. Are the characteristics you find attractive in yourself and your friends the same characteristics that you are drawn to in a man? This is important consideration to make. My take is that actually when you get right down to it, most of us don't actually want a guy who is similar to us. We like him because he's different. We just think wrongly otherwise because most of us have bought into idea on some level that good men are like women. The men we are drawn to don't have to be like us. And if you're trying to get a man to act in a certain way so that he can fulfill a certain part of your personality or needs, that's a big red flag that you need to do one or both of these two things. Get out and get some friends who will respond in that particular way and stop expecting him to do it for you. Realize that if you're trying to change your man, you don't actually want him after all. You want something completely different because you can't change a man. And if you're trying to, that's a sign that you might actually not be a good match. Does this mean that you have no chance of ending up with someone who really gets you and who is stable to satisfy and fulfill you on personal level? Absolutely not. I am in no way of suggesting that you lower your standards, put up with a relationship that is not working for you, or arbitrarily seek out men who are not well suited to your personality. But you've got a great guy on your hands. Why sabotage a relationship with him just because you're expecting him to behave in a certain way? Why not take the blinkers off yourself and take a look at who he really is as opposed to what you want him to be? And see if you are capable of caring for him as himself rather than as a prelude to your idealized man. If you are going to connect successfully with men, you need to accept the nuances and characteristics that make them men and celebrate them rather than suppress them. Dating principle number 2 applied. Men are attracted to women because they are women. There are two minefields in existence for most women when it comes to being a woman. The first one thing is feeling that femininity is all about looks. As in, we've got to be perfectly packaged at all times or we're just unfeminine. And of course, if you were to buy into high end commercial advertising, you'd believe that looking good costs an absolute bomb, which could only add to your troubles. Of course, men do want a woman who looks good. But you don't have to be perfect or gorgeous to be physically attractive. Instead, you've simply got to prioritize taking care of yourself. Why? Because, like it or not, people, including men, are going to draw conclusions about who you are from the way you present yourself. And if the way you are presenting yourself is advertising low self respect, low income, high laziness, and general mediocrity, then it shouldn't come as a surprise if you get less than enthusiastic responses from men. You don't need to obsess, but you do need to show yourself and your body the value that you deserve. And that means that taking some care is absolutely required if you're interested in being an all around quality woman. Minefield number 2 is believing that in order to get respect, women need to be as good as any man. And by the way, there's no way to be as a good as a good man without competing with him, which is not conducive to attraction, femininity, or a good time. Men do not want a relationship with the female versions of themselves. They don't want a boy with breasts. So stop worrying so much about how tough and independent you can be and start focusing on what's inside. Generally speaking, an overpowering desire to always be in control and be the best is actually not attractive. Why? Because when someone's putting that much energy into how others perceive them, it generally signals an actual lack of confidence in that area. It's called overcompensation and it's tend to set off warning bells in the minds of men than everyone else. So if you're putting so much time and effort into being as good as men, or in demonstrating how tough and competent you are, and if this is coming at the expense of your personality and feminine charm, then yes, that can be a problem where attraction is concerned. If you want to get a handle of femininity and know how to balance it with other facets of your personality, here is what I suggest. that you focus on building the qualities that make you feel more like the woman you were born to be, and the things that make you unique and different from men. Specifically, I'm talking about femininity, intuition, poise, and grace. Give up that girls can do anything, or I don't need a man competitive defensive rubbish that may have influenced you in the previous years, and start celebrating what it means for you to be a woman today. You can be empowered as a woman and want a man at the same time. Your femininity doesn't have to be conditional upon non-desire for relationship. It's not a weakness, so try not seeing it as one. Here is another suggestion. Start living your life and living your ideals in that way it suits you, not in a way that your parents brought you up or that your friends necessarily recommend. The idea here is to be the woman that you are, not the woman that others want to see. Stop apologizing for yourself. If you find yourself embodying female stereotypes, don't worry about it. As long as it's an authentic part of you, you're not just putting it on seemingly. That's in all gravy. For example, it's okay to be frightened of spiders, not know how to fix a car, love chick flicks, pretty flowers, and romance novels. Don't live in fear of being politically incorrect. You're an adult now, and you choose your own path. All actions that are rooted in fear and insecurity will inevitably backfire. How about instead choosing to act and react out of your own genuine femininity? Dating principle number 3 applied. You are not owed a relationship, you earn one. How about this? Instead of focusing on the end goal of getting a man and a relationship, you try focusing on being the happiest, most self-fulfilled, genuinely desirable woman that you can be. Getting rid of that get a man focus is going to earn you a lot of satisfying power when you actually meet a man you're genuinely attracted to. Make no mistake, men have a sixth sense when it comes to figuring out which are the women they actually want to be with and which woman they'll just spend a little time with before finding the right one. And of course, the right one is always the one who is not out there desperately looking for a man, trying to get things going, entering her whole life around attracting someone. Here's another benefit. The impetus to get a man now will be gone, and with that deep-seated sense of time passing and desperation that leads a lot of women into relationships that are less than simply for the momentary gratification of being with someone. Here's your challenge. Instead of waiting until you have a man in your life to be happy, focus on making yourself happy. Now you are sexy when you're happy, when you've got a great lifestyle going on that you're passionate about, and that best of all isn't conditional on the presence of somebody else. This is like a loud clanging bell that screams quality. And of course, it's always when you're happiest that someone notices and decides he wants a little of this in his life. So instead of focusing on him and on getting guy focus on yourself, do the things for yourself that you want to do. Figure out ways to make your life great and take steps to implement them. Do it. Time for a little exercise. Before we conclude this lesson, I want you to pick out a sheet of paper and grab a pen. I've given you a lot of ideas so far about how you can modify the way you interact with men to increase your success in attracting them. Now I want you to pick 5 ideas that appeal to you. They don't have to be my ideas. They can be ones that you thought up while reading these lessons, and write them down. Once you've finished writing down the 5 concrete steps that appeal to you most, I want you to write at the top of the sheet of paper the following headline: My goals for the next week. I want you to put each of those 5 ideas into practice in the following week. That's right, each and every one. Look, I know how most of us are, men and women alike. We come across idea and think, oh, that sounds great, and then we sit on our hands and do absolutely nothing about it. As it turns out, if you want to impress, you must take action. It's one thing to think to yourself, okay, if I want to improve my success with guys, I've got to chill out and start living a kick-ass life for myself without waiting around for some guy to show up and do it for me. But it's quite another to actually sit down and figure out what would really get your juices flowing and then actually do it. You can read and read and read and read as much as you can, but until you take steps to actually make change happen within yourself, nothing external is going to happen at all. Stay tuned for the next section. We're going to discuss the secrets of a healthy and lasting relationships. Good luck with the list, and I'll see you in the next chapter, in the next lesson. Thank you.